Hey, welcome everybody to another fun episode of Pinpoint Coaching with Krista and I. We are excited to bring you something kind of fun today. We, as always, have a unique perspective on just about everything that comes our way. But Krista has something very unique that she understood today.
Yeah, so I was talking to Chad earlier, and I happened to mention that I was having a really hard time with my content strategy. But what Chad so kindly pointed out to me was I'm really using my strategy like many of us use that treadmill that we bought. Um, and we had all the intent of using it, and we have it, but we're not using it, so we're not ultimately seeing the results.
Now, how many of you people have one of those things? Do you have a workout bench? Did you buy a fitness center? Did you buy a new blender so that you could make smoothies and be healthier? But the only thing the blender does is take up space on the counter, right? Because I found that's what most people do with their courses, with their masterclass replays, is it just clutters up space in their computer. And although having a content strategy is important, it's like having a good pair of running shoes is important. Without the proper application of that thing, you're not going to get a result. So today we want to talk a little bit more about content strategy. And do you have a plan? See, there's a difference between a content plan and a content strategy. Your plan may be to consistently post content in your social media profiles. It may be consistently putting up a blog post or doing a YouTube video or a post or video on Facebook or Instagram or a reel or a story. That's a plan, right? Well, my cousin, okay, my whole family comes from a hunting family, right? He had a plan to go out and get a deer every hunting season. He never got a deer. He was never able to bring home a deer. We figure that maybe it's because his plan included a bag of potato chips. And he's like, well, the deer are attracted to salty things, so I'll just sprinkle some of the crumbs and stuff down underneath, and when they smell it, they'll come, and then I'll shoot the deer, and we'll be able to feed the family. Well, the problem with that is crunch, crunch, crinkle, crinkle. The deer would never go, within 500 yards of him because he was so noisy. He had a plan. He even had a strategy. Both sucked because he wasn't taking the most important thing into mind, the individual or the deer, the people that his plan and strategy were supposed to attract. In fact, what he was doing in his plan made sense, but the strategy behind it actually repelled the very thing he was hoping to attract because he wasn't thinking about it from their perspective. So, we want to talk today a little bit about not only having a plan, because it's important for consistency. If you're going to have a consistent content strategy, you've got to have a plan on how you're going to implement that. I know a lot of people, they just do 5 days a week and they take the weekend off. I know other people literally just do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I don't know why, because those are like really bad mailing days for a lot of people, but that's what works for them and their audience. Other people, I know they'll take off like the Sabbath because it aligns with their spiritual beliefs. Other people just don't care. They just lambaste their audience every day, all day long. All of those are a plan. Very few of them actually have a specific strategy involved. Now, Christy, you said you were struggling with your strategy, um,
Right.
aka she was having a hard time doing the strategy, right? Um, so, what does your strategy actually look like if you were to lay it out?
Well, if I'm thinking about it, I think I had more of a plan. The strategy itself, excuse me, was ultimately to have my audience walk through the different, beliefs that had to be in place that would ultimately, either get them to the decision of do they want to work with me or not.
Okay. So, did y'all hear that the strategy was about belief, not about education? Now, why is that so important? Krista, why do you think it's so important to focus on a belief versus an education? Because doesn't your audience need to know and understand that you can get them a result, and isn't that based on knowledge?
For sure. The big difference is the belief is, well, while you can educate somebody, that's ultimately not going to impact if that's the core that they hold. Because you can give somebody information, but that doesn't mean they're going to integrate it and make it fully part of themselves.
Okay. So, knowledge without application is a book on a shelf,
Yep.
right? So, knowledge with an application strategy is nothing more than a book on a shelf. Knowledge with an application strategy and action taken to implement it results in a massive change in somebody's life. So, what we want to do is say none of those things, all of the knowledge, all of the strategy, all of the implementation in the world is not going to make a hill of beans of a difference if that person doesn't have the belief behind it of being able to get the result. I have watched two people, actually inside of our program, I watched two different people. They do exactly the same thing pretty consistently all week long, and one person continually gets more and more leads, and the other one has put absolutely nobody into the system. And it all comes down to one simple thing: their belief about the result. Because what a person believes comes through in their content.
Mm.
If they have doubt, which is a form of belief, right? Faith and doubt, just a little side note, faith and doubt are the same thing. They're belief, right? Faith is believing in the positive outcome of a future thing. Doubt is believing in the negative outcome, the thing which you do not desire is going to happen in the future. So to doubt believes in the outcome that's negative that you do not desire, and faith is believing in the positive outcome of the thing you do desire. So when we look at the page and we start writing or typing or shooting a video, what we believe on the inside is actually going to come through to our audience, and our audience will receive either faith or doubt. But that belief will be instilled in the content that we create. So what we want to do is we want to say what things are necessary for our audience to believe in order for them to be able to take the next step, to move to the next level, to take the next action. Because it's not just a simple process where I show up and I say, hey, Krista, if you grow your email list, you'll make money.
Right.
The problem is, if she truly believes that, she will sell her firstborn child, or at least her neighbor's firstborn child, to go buy an email list so she'll have money. If she doesn't believe it, she might take the action in hopes that something would work, but never actually make any progress because her heart isn't going to be completely in it. So there's going to be a difference. So the importance of our content is to actually work on changing the belief of the people that we serve on a regular basis. Okay? Now we do that in a couple different ways. And the one thing that we have to understand is the psychology behind a human being. Our beliefs and the patterns that we have in our mind, the way that we respond to the world and situations, are all based on the patterns that we have in our mind. If we constantly see negative things all around us, it's probably because there was a period of our life when we were impressionable where a lot of negative was happening. So now the reticular activator always looks for the negative thing, therefore sees the negative thing and reinforces the negative belief. Versus on the other hand, if we constantly see a positive outcome and we keep on seeing opportunities instead of obstruction, the reticular activator will then activate and will keep our eye open for the opportunity and the possibility instead of the obstacle and the loss. And because we're looking for it, we will see it. Our mind is programmed through repetition. So what we do within our content strategy is we ask ourselves, what few things must my audience believe to take the next step with me? It's not to get them to take the next step. It's to say, if they believe these things, then they will take the next step with me. If they choose not to believe them, that's okay. They're not your ideal audience. Let them go, right? But if they need to know these things, they need to believe these things, our job as content creators, as service providers, as educators, mentors, coaches, consultants, whatever it is that you do, even just as an affiliate, our job is to help them to understand what must be believed so that they can get the greatest benefit from what it is that we offer. And we do this through a very simple process. It's repetition. You find those core pillars, and then every day tell a story that supports one of those pillars in sequence. The next day, go to the next pillar, tell a story that supports that belief. The next day, go to the next belief, tell a story that supports that belief, and so forth until you get to the end of that belief cycle. And then the next day, go back to the first one and tell it again. Now, what you'll find is you can find all of these beliefs have a very natural order to them. Like, you wouldn't want to put believe it's possible after the importance of having the right tool, right? Because they kind of got to believe it's possible, or they're not going to go through and dig out the right tool. So put them in order that makes sense, and then walk them through that process over and over and over again. And all they'll hear is these stories that support the beliefs that are necessary. And when they adopt the belief of that thing that is true, the thing that is true, people, don't try and make them believe something that's not true to make a sale. That's just stupid. Okay? But find those core beliefs that must be true for them to take the next step, and walk your audience through that same process over and over again. And what you are doing is you are giving them the greatest benefit, because you're helping them to realign those neural pathways to the most positive mindset to get their greatest result. Now, if you do this and you find your 4 or 5 core pillars, and you just do this over and over again, I guarantee every story that you tell can be told from more than one different perspective. Right? Like, I could tell the story of the birth of our child in the bathtub here in this house, because we did a natural birth in the bathtub in this house. My wife delivered. I was just the husband. I didn't do any of the hard work. We wanted to skip the whole labor pains, so I jumped around the corner into the bedroom with a hockey mask and a catcher's glove. No, it's just a kidding. But I could tell that perspective from my wife. I could tell that story from my perspective. I could tell that story from my grandmother's, or from my mother's perspective, or my dad's perspective, because everybody saw and experienced that situation in a different way. Same story, but all one exact same belief. A home birth can be far less stressful and far more beneficial relationally within the family than the high stress state of most hospital visits. And I could express that through each one of those different perspectives, because each one of us experienced the same exact outcome just from our own viewpoint. Like my dad, he after my daddy passed away, Jerry married my mom, he was there. And he got to be a part of that birthing process. He got to weigh our child and record the information and the data. Mom got to be there to support my wife and I, something she had never been able to do before, right? I got to be there to hold my child, to catch my child coming into the world and take care of the umbilical cord and support my wife and encourage her. My wife got to do it in a situation which was not stressed out, drug induced from hospitals. She even had a mild complication with a lot of blood loss, and we still dealt with all that right there at home. But we had all these different stories that support that one belief, right? So what we do is, in our content, we find that core belief. We find multiple stories from our own experience that support that belief. And if you can't find 4 to 5 different stories to support that belief, you might want to think about whether or not you truly believe it. And if you do, think about why you believe it's true. Right? Don't say, I got to come up with a story. Ask yourself, why do I believe this is true? Have you ever seen the result? Have you ever seen that? And if not in your life, have you seen that result in someone else's? Okay? And then when you do that, what you're doing is you're creating an emotional connection because you're telling your personal experience and story to someone else. What happens is when you start telling your story, they start realizing that your life, which they can't argue because it's you, it's your life. It's not you telling a story about somebody else, third person. You lived it. And they start seeing your life supports all of these beliefs. They already see you as a leader because they're going back and consuming your content continuously. They're going to start to adopt those beliefs as they connect with you on a deeper level. And then it's only a matter of time before they eventually will be able to take your lead, your advice, your direction, your referral, or your program and take the next step. That's the importance of an actual content strategy because it's all about instilling a belief, not selling a product, but instilling the belief necessary for people to take the next step. Does that make sense?
Yes, to me for sure.
Okay. Does that clear up a little bit? It's different than just, having a treadmill versus turning on the treadmill versus getting on the treadmill and turning it on, right?
I think so for sure.
Okay. Because what I want people to understand is it's not just about having a strategy. It's not about having a plan. It's about literally being strategic in helping your audience get to the next point they need to be in for the audience member to advance.
Right.
It's not about making them feel good where they are. In fact, I do my best to make sure people are uncomfortable where they are. So
Yeah.
they'll want to take the next step based on the beliefs that they learn from me. And when you do that more consistently in your content creation, you'll find it's not as hard as you might think. In fact, one of the things that we did is we actually put together a tool specifically for our members inside SleepPay. And it actually covers those core beliefs in sequence. And then we literally did it. It's set up for May, I think. But so there's 30 days. 30 days of content. All they got to do is hop into that portal area, look at click on the content link, and literally just say, okay, it's the 15th. The 15th is boom, 15th, we're talking about this subject. Okay, they gave an example of what that looks like. Now, in my life, what do I have as a personal experience that would support that idea? And then you tell your story, and then you tie that in and say, hey, if you're interested in learning how to do that more effectively using an email list and serving your audience while getting paid, go ahead and drop a comment below. Something so simple as that, and what you'll do is you'll start to create an audience that falls in love with not only just your content, but who you are as an individual, because you're open, you're honest, and you're raw. And when you do that, you're going to find that your following grows, and it becomes much more tight-knit to the people that you can serve most effectively.
That makes so much sense.
Have any other questions to kind of help you move forward today, Krista? Or any other questions you might have heard from the team as you work with them?
Right. Something that kind of came up actually as you were describing that, when you talk about making sure that you have the belief of what you're saying, how I'm trying to think of how to word the question. It's thinking about my current content strategy. And I think a lot of this can feel this way sometimes. We come up with a belief, but there's a disconnect. Is there a way to become better aligned? Is it changing how we're structuring the belief?
Okay, well, the beliefs are necessary. Whether or not we're fully aligned with the belief or not, we ask ourselves, what is necessary for a person to believe?
Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
So if you're not quite there yet, ask yourself why not. Okay, so is that kind of where you're at? Like there is a core belief there, but you're not quite aligned with it yet?
I guess it feels right for the audience, but there's always a but, right? It's that sense of the way I'm trying to put it out, I'm not in alignment with. So yes, the basic answer is yes.
Okay, you said the way that you're trying to put it out. What do you mean by that?
I guess I'm trying to, it doesn't feel authentic to me sometimes, if that makes sense.
Well, let me ask you a question then.
Mm-hmm.
what is more authentic? Telling a make-believe story or telling your story?
Telling, my story.
Can you be inauthentic being honest about your story?
No,
So it's impossible to be inauthentic by sharing your personal experience.
right.
Problem solved.
Love it when that happens.
Right? And I know where you're at too, because it can be real like how do I relay this information best? Right? And we're
Yeah.
like, oh well, if I tweak this here, or torque it over there, that's not how it's designed. The truth is meant to be honest. The truth is meant to be unchanging because it's truth. It happened. It's already set in stone. You can't change it. So when you just present honestly with truth, then there's no disconnect with you. There's
Right.
no internal integrity issue because you're not changing anything. You're simply just sharing what you've already experienced. It's be
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know if I'm accurately portraying the Battle of 1812. Well, historically, what are the facts? And please, guys, don't go in a historical argument with me here, because I challenge teachers all the time to prove to me anything in history was a fact, and none of them can do it. Not one. All they can do is say, "Well, it's written down." Okay, who wrote it? Well, this person. Well, they're dead. Yeah, prove to me they wrote it. Well, it's written down. Okay, so because I write it down, it makes it fact. They're like, "Well, no." I says, "Okay, your entire theory is flawed." Right? But it's not about arguing over historical fact. It's about saying what is. And the only way that you can know that what is presented accurately is if you honestly represent your personal experience.
Wow. Okay.
And when you represent it through your own personal experience, now, now you actually have this beautiful thing. It's a fact, and it's you. And that gives somebody an opportunity to connect with. Remember, I shared a story about, having the right tool, where my grandpa and I were going to build a birdhouse.
Right.
And he told me that I needed a hole right here in this thing. And I went over there with I can't even remember if it was a whittling knife or a little chisel. But I sat there and I worked at it and I worked 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 and I worked. My grandpa's over there cutting up all the other pieces for the for the birdhouse. Finally, I come up and I'm like, Grandpa, I got it done. I got the hole there. And he's like, awesome. He says, we only need like 5 more. And so he went over, grabbed all the boards, stacked them up, and put them over there, took the drill press, went, all done. And he looked at me with a big old grin and goes, it's a lot faster if you use the right tool. I could share that story and I could have some fun with it because it was my experience, right? But
Right.
even today, is it 100% accurate? No, because I can't remember if I used a whittling knife or a chisel. And if I used a chisel, I don't know if I used a metal chisel, for metal work, or if I used a wood carving chisel. Yeah, I don't know if it was a paring knife or if it was a whittling knife. I don't remember those things, but I remember the story and the experience. And I do remember that I was hand carving it. Right? I was a little kid. So I can speak fully and honestly from my experience of the situation and with full integrity share what I learned through that experience. Nobody remembers anything 100% accurately, ever. If you think that's true, ask your mother about your childhood and see if it matches up with what you experienced.
Hmm. I have.
I was miserable. My mom will tell you that I was a really happy kid.
Yeah. Okay.
I hated my life. I was so miserable. I was sad and depressed almost all the time, but every time you saw me, I'd be smiling and joking and laughing because that's what I thought they wanted they wanted to see or what they needed to see.
Right.
So the reality of my experience was different than the belief about my experience by other people. So our job is simply to just be honest about our personal experience with other people, and we'll never have a problem with the internal integrity issue of like, how do I present this better? It's not about better, it's just be real, be authentic. And when you do that, you will find that you will attract more people into your space. And the most important thing is you will attract people into your space that you actually enjoy spending time with. because they'll connect with who you are, not who you present yourself to be. Make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
All right. So, guys, I want you to make sure that you stay tuned. Every week, we're going to be putting up new trainings inside the tutorial, inside the portal area. So make sure you grab them. And if you're not in there, I mean, come on, because I think we're probably going to post this one out there for everybody, because this is just super powerful to understand this about content. We teach them to create content and put it on your social media. This tells you why it's so important to know how to do it. I don't care if you get in the portal just so you can get access to that tool. It'll be worth it 100 times over. I guarantee it throughout the years. So we're probably going to throw it out there, but make sure you come back into the portal, utilize the portal. If you're a free member, use the daily steps. They're listed right there on the side. Use them. They work. Okay? If you're inside the affiliate accelerator, and you're spending that $9 a month so that you can get these weekly trainings, use them. Show up and listen to them. There is gold dropped in these trainings. We keep it relaxed. We're not stick in the mud type people. We're not going to sit in a bunch of sales presentation style settings. Do I have a green screen? Yep, I got a green screen. I also got a messy room. Thank goodness for the green screen, right? But the reality is I do that just so that you're not distracted by the things around me, not to present something that's not here. If you ever want, here, just so you guys have the opportunity. That's my room. That's the back of my office wall right there. Like, we're nothing special. Sometimes we just want to clear it up and make it a little bit more fun because these trainings are out of this world. All right. But no, seriously, just utilize the tools and the resources that we put together for you, because we do this for you. We take time out of our day because we care about you. Krista does it because she wants to get, not stuck with her struggling in content. No, I jest. She cares about you. Otherwise, she wouldn't take the time out of her day when she should be working on other things like her content strategy.
Well, wasn't doing it right anyway. So
Right. Yeah. She was struggling so hard. No matter how hard she stared at it, it just wasn't doing anything without her. We used to joke. I used to work as a household mover. Side note, one last joke kind of experience from me to you guys. I used to work as a household mover. And we would always joke because there was only two places that you would find the exercise equipment. It was generally in the attic or in the back far corner of the basement. And I'm thinking, it's a weight machine. How'd they get it up there? Because if they lifted it and carried it up there, they probably didn't need it in the first place. But we'd always laugh about it because when we'd be driving down the road, somebody would always bring it up. We'd be like, wow, that's the first time that thing's actually given anybody a workout. Because when we had to pick it up and move it, right? So don't let your content strategy, don't let your plan only be effective when somebody is critiquing it. Go use it. Implement it. Help people create positive belief in their life that will help them to move to the next level. And you will find that your business will rise to the next level as well. So with that, we love you. Remember, there is greatness and there is beauty within you. Now go share that greatness with the world today.